What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Before we get to the topic of today's video, let's just discuss the current state of Outriders as it is, which has now, at the recording of this video, been out for almost 3 days, almost 72 hours. The last 72 hours have not gone, I guess, perfect, you could say, or I would even say according to plan. And that is because mostly the biggest problem has been server outages, which has of course affected people's ability to log into the game and to play it. That has been an issue on Friday, and it was an issue on Saturday, and it was happening in some cases during peak times, which were affecting people's ability to enjoy the game. Nonetheless, People Can Fly Studios have worked around the clock and to rectify these issues and to try and come up with workarounds to allow people to log into the game and play. And they have accomplished that, because even though we do have outages, and some of those outages were, for an extended period of time, it's come back with and has been stable since then. And I have to say that today so far has gone off without a hitch, and I've put in quite a few hours today already. People Can Fly Studios have been very vocal and very transparent with all of these problems on Twitter and other social platforms, and have engaged people with their complaints and that sort of thing, and as well as status updates from their side. But unfortunately, there's a vocal minority that have obviously responded with the usual, like, I suppose, death threats and that just terrible negativity and vitriol that usually these sorts of platforms attract. And it's really quite sad, and I just wish people would stop with this shit. So I actually just wanted to take like 30 seconds here to say, even though there's no chance, a snowball's chance in hell, that someone from People Can Fly Studios ever sees this, if they were, and if I were addressing them right now, I would just like to say from my side that I appreciate the effort that has gone into keeping this game up and running, and also bringing it back up and running during all of the problems that we've seen in the last 72 hours. I believe it's very ambitious to have launched a game like this right before a long weekend, and consequently, I can only say thank you for the free time with your families and the off time with your families that has obviously been sacrificed by people working as part of that team, and obviously everybody who supports you, to try and keep this game running, and to try and address rather all of the issues that have come up. So that's just my little piece on that. But the topic of today's video is, obviously there's been a lot of people that haven't been able to put in the amount of hours into the game that, I'm lucky. I'm over 30 already, and I've already completed the game, and so therefore I'm happy with that. But obviously, as I said, there's been some people that haven't been able to. There's also probably been some people that have been away for the weekend, or will only now be starting the game. So this video is for those people. Definitely, you will definitely benefit from watching this. But also for someone that is relatively new to the game and has only dabbled in it in a couple of hours, there might be some really informative information for you. And lastly, even if you have spent quite a bit of time for this, the last couple of points which I'll discuss here are probably going to maybe give you some information as well that you might not have yet. But this is generally considered to be some important things that you might or might not know about Outriders, and that you should know before starting it or while playing it. Let's go. So let's start off with something simple and easy. There are some settings in the game that you might not know about, or some things that might have bothered you in the demo that have been addressed since the game actually came out. The first two that I'd mention is, the first thing is something called cinematic camera smoothing, which is located under the gameplay tab of the settings. And basically, if during the demo you found the cutscenes to be very choppy and almost move like, there's a meme already where it's basically like, it's like someone who shakes a lot was the cameraman or something like that. But basically, this setting, if you turn it all the way up to 1, will eliminate that completely. I believe what it's doing is it's actually skipping some of the frames, because what I have noticed is some funny things where, for instance, because I have the subtitles on, you can see that a certain little piece of dialogue or a word or something is sometimes skipped. So I think that's how this is accomplishing this, but it definitely eliminates that, which was quite jarring for me in the demo, and something that I originally mentioned in one of my videos. So it's good that that's been done. The second thing is, of course, motion blur, which is located under the display portion of the settings, and this is a thing that comes down to preference, I suppose. I do know some people that like playing with motion blur. It is very aggressive in this game, and if you are someone that suffers from motion sickness, most likely the motion blur in this game will trigger that. So obviously you can turn that off here. The last setting that doesn't necessarily affect view or anything like that, but it's quite a good gameplay one, is if we go back to the gameplay tab and we look at auto loot minimum rarity. So just an explanation here is that this setting allows you to choose between common going all the way up to legendary, meaning that if any one of those items falls and you don't pick it up and you transition the area or you die, then that loot will be automatically picked up. Now, by default, it's not on common. By default, it is on rare. So you can move it all the way down, and that helps out for two reasons. One, you don't have to worry about scouring the entire area every time, walking around looking for shit that might have dropped on the ground that you might have missed. If you transition to an area, it'll automatically pick it up. Likewise, if something good drops and you end up dying before you can pick it up, this will be sure to add it to your inventory. If something is missed or your inventory is full, then it also goes to the inbox of your stash. So that's also quite helpful. Next, let's go ahead and discuss character choice and basically, how that affects your playstyle. I made mention of this in one of the previous videos that I recorded, but obviously you can use any weapon on any one of the 4 different characters, being Pyromancer, Trickster, Devastator, and Technomancer, of course. And you can use a sniper rifle on a Trickster, which is generally considered to be more of a in your face close range character, and that's perfectly fine. That's actually how I play my Trickster. But what you have to keep in mind is the healing mechanics of each one of the 4 different characters, which is clearly explained when you do the character selection, but just the interaction of that within your weapon choice might make you realize that you are not necessarily playing the character that you chose wrong, but that you will most likely see a lot more success and die less and just generally feel stronger if you actually play to the strengths of the characters. A simple example of this is, for instance, if you look at the Technomancer's healing mechanic, it says that the Technomancer recovers health by any damage that you deal. So this can be you shooting something with a shotgun, and you shooting something with a sniper rifle, so whether you're close or far away from it, and basically any other damage that you deal. Essentially all damage that the Technomancer deals heals you. That puts the Technomancer in very much like a supportive role. Now, whether you play co-op or not, the bottom line is still that the range at which you engage enemies is generally how you can keep from, dying a lot in combat. And the point is that the Technomancer is able to stay at longer range and keep, creatures and enemies off him with the turrets while pelting away with long-range weapons, because even that heals you as well. If we inversely then look to the Trickster, who's essentially kind of like the opposite of that playstyle, you'll notice that the Trickster's healing mechanic says that as the Trickster kills anything up close in what's considered close range, which is anything closer than, I believe it's 9 meters from you, you get a small boost to your health, and you also get some shield generated. So the Trickster, again, if you were to stand at long range and shoot with a sniper rifle, you might be effective and you might actually be killing things, but the point is you'll never engage that healing mechanic unless those creatures eventually track you down and stack up against you. But then again, it's very difficult to fight them off with a long range option if you're standing with a sniper rifle in your hand. So this might be obviously very apparent to certain people, but this is very much important for you to understand the strengths of your character. Likewise, the Pyromancer, for instance, the Pyromancer feeds off and is generally considered to be a spellcaster character. So basically any damage that you do, any enemies that are killed that were marked by your skills, as it mentions there in the tooltip, will heal you when it dies. But for instance, your melee, which afflicts burns on enemies, is also considered a skill. So that's also something to bear in mind. So definitely on the onset rather, when you look at this, it looks really self-explanatory and everything, but the intricacies of it can get a little bit complicated. And if you, like me, originally started out playing a character, you might eventually realize that you prefer a different play style than to what your character is strong for. An example being that I started out with Trickster, but realized that I actually like the Technomancer and the far range engagements a bit more. So I was kind of like a little bit on the wrong character, I would say. Nonetheless, there's no reason why you can't play a sniper Trickster. There's no reason why you can't play a fucking close-up shotgun Technomancer. These things are all possible. And that is the beauty of this game's skill tree, its weapons, and just generally how the game plays, that you could do those things. But I do believe that if you play to the strengths of your character, especially considering that if you go into the co-op side of it, then you will see a lot more success by actually, keeping these things in mind. Next, that actually gives us a good segue into discussing world tiers, and the game has essentially two progression tracks in terms of increasing the power of your character. Your character has levels itself, which go from 1 to 30, and those unlock skill points and they unlock abilities and everything like that. But once you get to 30, it's capped, and that's it. Now, what the world tier system does is it adds another layer on top of that, where basically the most important thing that it does is it makes items drop above your level, and you be able to pick those items up and wear them above your level. So as an example on the screen here, you can see now that World Tier 9 has a permanent unlock that's mentioned at the bottom there, wearable item level cap +6, and then you'll see that dropped item level +6 is also mentioned above that. So if I'm level 30, that means that if I'm on World Tier 9, it'll drop level 36 gear. That's the point, and I'll be able to put it on. Now, very important to notice here is the part where it says permanent unlock. That means that even if you're playing at 9 and you're getting your ass kicked, you can scale down to, for instance, 6, and you're not going to not be able to wear your gear anymore that you got at 9, because permanently that level upgrade is unlocked. However, now that you're on World Tier 6, the gear is going to be dropping at a comparable level to World Tier 6, which is in this case only 3 levels above you. So the loot will not be as good, will not be as high level as World Tier 9, and that of course makes sense because that's the incentive for you to go up in world levels. Now, as you're playing, this World Tier system, I believe, is very important when you're done playing the game and when you start going on expeditions. And so in other words, when you're done and when you're level 30, and not so much important when you're playing through the game, or when you're trying to finish the game, or when you're trying to level a character to 30. The reason for that is twofold. Firstly, any gear that you get before you get to level 30 or before your max world tier level, in any case would need some crafting items to upgrade that to eventually the maximum once you are level 30 and once you are on world tier 15, because that's the maximum level of the items. So anything that you get right now would in any case have to be upgraded. So the point is, I would imagine that whether you are picking up World Tier 6 items or World Tier 10 items or World Tier 14 items, they will all require upgrade components. Yes, the World Tier 6 to get it all the way up to World Tier 15 will require more items, but nonetheless there's an upgrade required. And that feeds into my second point, and that is that the game, while it is not that difficult, that let's say from World Tiers 1 to 6 or 7 and shouldn't really pose a problem to anyone, it really does get tough from about World Tier 9, World Tier 10, World Tier 11 onwards. While you're playing the story mode, you might think that it's important that you keep racing world tiers and keep updating them, because you're going to get better gear and surely you get more XP, right? Now, in the testing that I've done, the difference between each world tier is about 7.5% on average XP more. So if you are, for instance, you have unlocked World Tier 9, but you are choosing to play on World Tier 6 because it's easier and you can kill the creatures faster, then you are in essence sacrificing about, let's say, 21 to 22% of XP additional. But that is counteracted by the fact that you're going to be able to move through monsters much quicker and actually kill more. You're going to die less, and you're going to struggle less with, a boss that is essentially a giant fucking meat shield and takes like 6 or 7 minutes of filling in with bullets to fucking drop him eventually. So I definitely think I was doing it at the beginning where I was trying to go up as far as I could get, and I got to World Tier 9 and that's where I started making this example, and I was really struggling, and it was really taking me long to kill bosses and that sort of thing. And that's when I started doing the testing, because I always thought that I wanted to get as much XP as possible. And really losing 20, for instance, to drop 3 levels at your current gear set, which then makes you, you know, quite powerful compared to the monsters that you're fighting. And you'll definitely notice the different stuff that used to take like 2 or 3 headshots to kill will now take 1. And that little loss of XP didn't really make that big a difference. Either which way, by the time you get to the end of the game, you're probably going to be around, depending on how much you grinded. I grinded quite a bit. I was just before level 30 when I got to the final boss. So either which way, I don't think that you lose that much, and definitely you scale down on some of the frustration that you might feel while you are, you know, trying to grind out a world tier level. Now, however, once you get to level 30 and you have all of your skill points mapped out and everything like that, then of course you start doing expeditions, and then the idea is to start chasing up, you know, higher tiers of world tier, because of course when you get to the maximum level of world tier, it gives you the best possible chance of, you know, legendaries dropping. It also gives you the highest level of items, which means you don't have to upgrade them further. And lastly, it also just in general increases the quality of the loot. So the loot rarity is also modified, so you're going to see a lot less, you know, common and uncommon stuff, and much more epic and, you know, hopefully legendaries. So that's basically just something about, I would say, the world tier system, and how I think that you should rather, you know, scale it down a little bit so that you're actually able to go through the content at a relative pace, and so therefore you'll get plenty of XP from that. For the last part of the video, I actually just wanted to cover crafting and the mod system, and just mention some things which might not be apparent or might not be explained in the game with its systems. So firstly, if the modding system for weapons and for armor works basically exactly the same, but you have some different options here. More specifically, I'm not going to cover the improved rarity and the level up, because I do believe that those are pretty self-explanatory. The raise attributes, each item that drops in an epic variety or a legendary variety drops with 3 attributes. Now these attributes, they can be a different combination. There is no set combination for these, and obviously that then becomes part of the whole thing of finding the correct items that have the correct, you know, min-max for what you're looking for. Like in the case of this is a trickster, so in my mind I would imagine that important stats for a trickster, or what I'm trying to stack onto my gear, is I want more firepower, I want close range damage because I'm going in with shotguns or with submachine guns, and I want, in my case, I want status power because I want, when I weaken something or when I set something on fire or when I freeze something, I want that effect to last longer, which is what status power does. Now, essentially, it also, in the case of burning and toxic and that sort of thing, it actually makes it do more damage, so it's really quite a powerful effect. Now, you can raise the attributes of these by actually going to this area and spending what they refer to as shards here. Now you'll notice that there's a number behind each one of these things, and that's how many shards of that particular category I've managed to collect. And you collect this by disassembling gear, just like you collect mods for your mod library by disassembling gear. When you disassemble a piece of gear, then whichever item has that little icon next to it is the one that you're gonna get when you disassemble it. So if I was to disassemble this shotgun, I would get status power. I'd get a little bit of that added into my shards bank. Now the other items here are pretty explanatory, and they come also from disassembling. You can also buy them in certain cases. Of course, titanium being the premium currency, which you get 1 or 2 of by disassembling an epic or a legendary item, and you can also get them in the world when, you know, monsters drop them. Now the reason for me actually explaining this is that what has to be borne in mind is, if you're one of the people that you're not going to just play this with one character, and you're eventually going to maybe build 2 or 3 different characters, play them up to max level, and then see, you know, which one do you like, want to play, or maybe you'll play one in co-op and you'll play one in single player, but nonetheless you'll have more than one character. What's important to know is that these resources are for one character only. They're unfortunately not shared between your characters. Also, what's not shared between your characters is, of course, your mod library. So a mod that I've unlocked on this trickster, as you can see by those icons there, Weekend Bullets and Gravedigger's Frenzy, I've unlocked both of these. They are not unlocked for my other characters. So there's 2 choices here, really. And I don't think necessarily one is right and one is wrong, but there's 2 ways for you to approach crafting and generally upgrading your gear from the game's perspective. One is that you can essentially commit yourself to a hell of a lot of time and take gear that drops here, like in the case of this, like this pistol that I have here has dropped now, and I have both these mods unlocked to this. So then I go to my stash, I put this pistol into the stash, I take it out with one of the characters that don't have these mods, I disassemble it, and now those mods are also on that character. The problem with that approach is that if you do that in the short term, you're also splitting up a lot of your resources between 4 different characters, and more specifically a lot of your shards, because while it is relatively easy to get leather and to get iron, and I would say even to get titanium to a degree, the problem is that the shards really accumulate quite slowly, and you really have to disassemble. I have this many shards because I have disassembled a shitload of gear, and I've essentially farmed the hell out of one boss specifically. So the point is that what you might want to consider is then the second option when it comes to crafting and leveling up gear, and that is to have one character be the one that does that. So whenever you disassemble something, you always just disassemble it onto one character so that its complete mod bank is complete in the end, as well as all of your shards are on there. Then whenever you need to upgrade or craft something or try out a different ability, you use that character, and then you simply funnel the items through your stash to your other characters. So the choice is yours which way you want to do it. I definitely think the second approach is probably more friendly for people that want to have a more optimized way of doing it and definitely don't want to farm a lot. If you are going to be farming a lot, if you are playing a shitload of expeditions and things like that, then you're going to be playing the game a lot in any case, and most likely you'll feel the pain of running out of shards and running out of resources a lot less than, let's say, your average person. And then maybe the first options to it. Maybe you're just a completionist and you want all 4 characters to have the full, mod libraries available. Fine, power to you. But that's really the 2 options that you have when it comes to this, and definitely it's up to you which one you take. That's basically it for the video. I know it's been a long one, and I really appreciate if you stuck with the whole thing. Hopefully you've learned something from some of these points, or it's explained something a little bit better to you that you didn't know before. But please do go ahead and mention in the comments below if there's something that you'd like explained a little bit more. If you have any question about the stuff that I've said here, anything that you've seen, I check my comments religiously, and I'll be sure to explain and leave you another comment, a re-comment. Either which way, thank you very much for clicking in and for spending the time. I really do appreciate it. If you like this kind of content, I'm definitely really deep into Outriders right now, and I'm excited to get to the part where we can start looking at builds and what our favorite mods are, what our favorite mod combinations are. I've already got a couple ideas for those, but yeah, like I said, if you enjoy content like this, please do consider subscribing. It does help the channel a lot. It does help me grow. We've seen some amazing growth in the last couple of weeks, and I'd like to keep that momentum going. There are a lot of people that watch this video and other videos, this content, and aren't subscribers, and I do encourage you to hit that bell. Thank you very much for the support. Have a great morning, have a great afternoon, have a great evening wherever you are, and until next video, fucking cheers.